Welcome to the Daily Technology Pulse podcast by Daily Computers, your expert technology partners for public and private sector organizations throughout Maryland and Virginia. This episode is brought to you by ClickShare by Barco, offering unparalleled flexibility, allowing IT managers to easily equip their meeting rooms. At Barco, great engineering starts with a clear vision, a vision of a better, smarter, healthier world. And now, here's your host, Rick from Daily.
Joining us today on the Technology Pulse podcast, we have Dan Root. Dan is head of global strategic alliances for ClickShare at Barco. Dan, thanks for joining us today.
Rick, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And, we definitely love the partnership with Barco. Really excited to talk to you about things today. So want to start things out by having you sort of introduce yourself a little bit, give us a little bit about your background, and talk to us about Barco.
Sure thing. Well, a little bit about myself. I'm located in the New England region, just north of Boston area. And prior to my time here at Barco, I was actually a senior analyst with Wainhouse Research, which has now become part of Futurum Research, covering the space of wireless casting and conferencing, as well as large format touch displays and visual collaboration. So your virtual whiteboards and digital whiteboards, such as Microsoft Teams whiteboard, Zoom whiteboard, things along those lines, murals. And prior to that experience, I was actually in the market on the vendor side within visual collaboration as a director of market research and strategy. And through COVID, seeing the changes that were happening, it made sense at the time to kind of jump from being on the vendor side of the house to more on the industry side, helping both end customers and vendors determine how best to leverage visual collaboration software and virtual whiteboarding. It was a really interesting time. A lot has changed in a few short years. I think we can all agree that today's reality is a very different work experience than what we knew up until 2020. But I think we are seeing a period of settling, shall we say, where we're getting beyond talking so much about the newest hype or the newest trend or newest brand word, and getting back to really what is just your workplace attendance policy. And that's something that is going to be steadfast moving forward. And some folks may have a little more flexibility on that, and others probably won't, depending on what role and things like that they play. And that's what really led me to come to Barco and to ClickShare. I joined the team a little over a year ago because of the vision that we really have for the meeting space of creating something that's scalable, reliable, and really easy to use. And that's something that the principles of sharing and leveraging, or shall we say, scaling your experience into a room is something that I think is what most people resonate most with when they're walking into meeting spaces. They really want to be able to just come in and naturally be able to leverage the other tools that are there at their disposal. And every time you put in extra steps or extra pieces to learn, you end up slowing down that adoption curve and getting people on board. And so after working with the team at Barco for a couple of years as an analyst externally on some projects, it was a really easy fit to say, I see the vision that you guys are going to build for the next few years, and I'm super excited to be a part of it. After a year in, we've done a lot of really cool things in a short period of time. We introduced our first ClickShare bar earlier this year, which brings together wireless AV connectivity into a single form factor and all-in-one. And then we also have created some great announcements, connectivity with Microsoft Teams, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later on.
Yeah, no, definitely a lot to unpack there. But, have to keep referring back to this, how much the world changed and how it's got to continue to evolve, because we went from everybody being in an office setting together to nobody being in the office setting together. And now, like you said, it's one of those situations where we're now just morphing back and forth. And it really does go back to that attendance policy. And a lot of companies want to bring people together. They feel that having them in the same space, you get more collaboration. And yet there are some people that, particularly when jobs went virtual, you found, okay, so now we can have resources that aren't necessarily local, or we can have resources that, again, you make it more attractive for employees to come work in the office 2 days a week or 3 days a week versus 5 days a week. So there are a lot of different variables in there, and organizations really have to maneuver And they have to be able to adapt to that, because bringing people back into the office, bringing people back into a shared workspace, it doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't happen on everybody's same schedule. And so they really need to be able to try to adapt to that. Are you seeing that as a huge driver for these types of solutions?
Absolutely. I mean, over the last couple of years, organizations have had to take multiple different approaches in a short period of time just because of the changing landscape mixed with public policy and health policy and things like that all at once. There was a lot of change and a lot of shifting happening just to make sure you were compliant as an organization in every single state and local municipality across the globe. So there was a lot of flux and flexing to that HR type policies throughout COVID. And now that we're a little bit beyond that and been able to look back, I think that you're starting to see policies be a little bit more well thought out. The blanket one size fits all is something that we've really looked at a pushback from. A lot of the organizations that tried to reinstitute that have seen a good amount of backlash from their employees and have lost some really talented people off their team because of those mandates. So I think what you're finding is organizations saying, look, everybody should have some flexibility and we should trust folks regardless of, exactly which role they are in the ladder, as long as it makes sense. Obviously, if you are somebody who has to be on a manufacturing line, well, there's really no way for me to have you work remotely and still get that work done. So you're unfortunately going to be in 5 days a week. If you're somebody, though, who's working in a role that is much more knowledge worker based or, independent contributor to a team, well, there's a good argument to say that 2 to 3 days a week, you may be more productive working on your house than you may be in the office. But back to a point you mentioned around people want to make sure that they're in the office, or companies want to make sure that there's the opportunity to collaborate in person. There's been multiple studies. We actually have some cited in a few different presentations that I've given this year at Enterprise Connect and Infocom that show folks like to be in room for certain types of engagements. So when you're talking about yearly reviews or management one-on-ones with a superior, those things your employees value being in the room with you and having FaceTime in those contexts. They care about being in the room when it's a big project that needs to be delivered. One, because it's a sign of respect from your colleagues and your superiors that they would take the time to be in the room with you as well. But it also allows you to really understand those nonverbal cues and those things that, don't get me wrong, we're getting closer with things like Starlink from Google and a few of the other solutions on 3D video conferencing, which does help some of that nuanced nonverbal communication to be transmitted. But you still miss something if you're not in the room, if somebody happens to shoot a side eye at somebody else. So, we're focused in that area around how do you bridge those gaps and how do you make it so that when you have a policy that you institute, it's something that everyone can get behind. And so you do need to find that happy balance where you say, look, these are the things we're going to do in office. These are the types of meetings, the type of projects that we want to have happen in the office. And these are the types of things we think are okay for folks to do independently, especially in your engineering and in some of your web developer side of the house. Those folks, some of them can spend 6 or 8 hours by themselves just working on a project, not talking to anybody. Whether that's in an office or at their house, I don't think is really the most pressing issue. The most pressing thing is, hey, we need to get this done by the deadline. And I really need to make sure that it's done correctly.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. You get a lot of companies and a lot of organizations that have this dilemma. We're looking to provide this experience. We're looking to provide this consistency and this seamlessness, but really it does seem like it's something extraneous, right? You want to have these collaborative spaces. You want to have this collaboration. You want to be able to to have people have that similar experience to being in a room no matter where they're at. But at the same time, that's not, that's helping to push the mission forward, but it's not the mission. So whether it's somebody who's involved in manufacturing or somebody who's involved in, again, if you're looking at a state or local government agency, they have their mission, and collaborating in a meeting space isn't part of that mission, but it is something that is key to that mission. And especially in education, K-12, higher ed, you get all of these folks that, again, they need to be together. They need to be able to, like you said, have that almost face-to-face experience. But a lot of times, I mean, particularly if you look at K-12s and you look at all of the different schools that are all over the place, it used to be, okay, we have to take a half day off because somebody's got to travel to get into one room together. And now we're giving them the opportunity to have these spaces within their individual campuses where they can still have that collaboration and still have that same face-to-face experience, but not have to take the half day and fight the traffic and, oh, what is everybody going to have for lunch and all of the things that go along with that challenge.
Yeah, I think it's all about prioritization and compromise when it comes down to it. And I think it's important for an organization to decide what are those things that we are going to say we're in person for these things. This sort of a collaboration or this sort of a decision, we're going to make sure we're together. These sorts of activities, these sorts of ongoing projects, we need to make the experience as seamless as possible so that people can be as productive as possible to get to the end goals for those initiatives. And so you need to build a environment that is flexible enough that it can accommodate when people need to be in the room, and it can accommodate the fact that most of the time you're going to have half the people in the room and the other half is going to be somewhere else or in multiple other places. So the room basics or the requirements has changed coming out of COVID and has kind of raised the bar. Video enablement, I think we all agree, is becoming more and more popular across spaces, whether they're more formalized spaces like meeting rooms, whether they're more flex spaces, huddle spaces, whichever adjective or name you'd like to give them this day and this week. But more or less, they're all working towards the same thing. And the underlying current of, you're right, it's not about bringing people into a meeting space for a municipality or a K through 12 school, but it is about the fact that someone in that group is going to need to come in to use that meeting room for something, and they're going to need it to flex and work for them without spending 20 minutes being trained on what that room is. If you go and talk to local school districts, ask their teachers how much time set aside for training the different tech tools that they get into their stack. If you talked to a teacher during COVID, there was no training set aside for onboarding all those tools. It was just figure out how to use it. Here you go. And that tends to be in municipalities kind of, here you go, we've got it, but you're going to have to figure out how best to put that to use. That's really challenging for somebody who, for instance, in a municipality might work in a different department that never has to be in a meeting room. But once a year, they have to do a budget meeting where they have to submit a budget for their department and be in that meeting room, leverage it, and look professional. And if you walk in and have no idea what you're looking at or how to get it done, it's going to become a real point of contention for you. You're going to be more anxious. You're going to be more hesitant. You're not going to want to present yourself in as confident of a manner as you really need to make sure you're getting your points across. And so that's where ClickShare really is trying to drive to create a consistent experience that's so simple that you just walk in, plug in a button, press it, and you're off to the races regardless of what you need to do or what application you're trying to share or use within that space. And it comes back to how do consumers use technology? Because we're all very used to our personal devices. And everybody's used to, if I'm at home and I want to share something off my phone, I lift it up and then just press this display and we're done. I don't need to do anything else. Why is it so much more challenging when I get to a conference room to just be able to share something off of a device? We have a great experience for both that in-room presentation and that hybrid connectivity that you need so that you can leverage that device and really empower yourself to make the most out of that space.
And that really is it. We have video solutions. Every device today has a camera, so people can, they can take calls. I even have. I mean, my goodness, it's almost like next level stuff. I have an Apple Vision Pro that will put my virtual avatar on the screen, so it captures my facial expressions, but it's not actually me. So again, we have all of this technology, but just like you said, it's the training, it's the ease of use, and it's the consistency, because not everything is the same. And we are faced with these challenges all the time where, like you said, you don't use this all the time. So you walk into a room and you have absolutely no idea how to get connected, how to share, how to make the experience so that it is seamless and you're not taking the first 15, 20 minutes where you're saying, can you hear me? Can you see this? And all of that. I like to use this term. You want to hit the easy button. And it sounds to me like ClickShare really is giving people that easy button. So how do you do it?
First off, thank you. Well, there is absolutely zero connection to the easy button from Staples. I promise I will take that comparison any day of the week. But the button thought process for us has been something that we've taken the approach to for well over a decade now, of this idea of it needs to be simple, it needs to be consistent, and it doesn't matter what else is plugged in the room. Your user experience to get from walk into the room to connected state and goal state needs to be exactly the same. So whether you work with our C line, which is our casting or present line, which just shares your display up to a bigger display in the room, and of course it'll output audio. But what you don't have in those situations is a connectivity to a camera wirelessly or to a microphone. So you don't really run, Microsoft Teams calls through that sort of a solution. Our C line is mostly for, I just want to do an in-room presentation. With our conferencing line, though, that gives you that access and ability to capture the video and the audio that are also in the room, so that you can pass that through, so that you wirelessly are connected and able to host a meeting and scale it to be a professional grade meeting experience without needing a room solution or without needing wired connectivity on multiple ports to your laptop or sitting at a podium. You can be anywhere in the space and quickly share. The last couple of pieces that we've added to the portfolio more recently is our flexible meeting switching, which is to say, there are a lot of companies out there that have a mix of rooms. They have some Microsoft Teams rooms, or they have Zoom rooms, as well as having some bring your own device spaces. And so we find that in those cases, the easiest way for the company to create a standard is to make sure that there's a wireless BYOD fallback in the room, which means to say that even in a Microsoft Teams environment, we'll still have a ClickShare in there. And we plug into that Microsoft Teams Rooms device. And when it's in its lobby state, if you plug in a button and press the button, just like you would in any other ClickShare room, we'll actually take control of the Microsoft Teams device and put it into BYOD mode and wirelessly connect you so that you have all the capabilities you need, and you can run any call you want on any platform directly off your laptop within that Microsoft Teams room or Zoom room. This is also great when you have a Teams call already going, because if you have a guest who's maybe not on your Wi-Fi, maybe they aren't on the VPN that they need to be on, but they just have a slide or document that we need to share into the call, they're able to just plug in, press the button, just like you would any other time with ClickShare, and then they're wirelessly connected and able to share their screen into the screen share of the Microsoft Teams call. So that actual screen share will then be shared out to all of the remote participants. So it really helps to bring down the barriers for those folks that aren't in the room that often and maybe aren't fully connected or fully provisioned on the systems that you might need in the space. It allows them to just shortcut that and still get to their end state as quickly as possible. And then we also brought out that all-in-one bar approach. Now, a lot of all-in-one products that you've probably heard of also support the ability to host a room on that device, so a Microsoft Teams room or a Zoom room. Our device does not do that. Our device is strictly wireless BYOD mixed with AV. And so what that allows for, though, is that flexibility of any point in time, the person just walks into the room, connects the button, presses the button, and again, they are wirelessly connected and have all of that great functionality that we've just talked about on conferencing, just all within one unit at a price point that allows it to get into those small meeting spaces. I know I kind of went on a little bit of a tangent on our portfolio there, but the real point of what I'm trying to drive at is that in all of the areas of our portfolio, we focus on this simple experience. Plug in the button, press the button, you're off to the races. We also offer a software for your personal device, your laptops, to be able to connect into the room without plugging a button in. And the reason for that is so that on certain, shall we say, state, local government buildings, sometimes there's a lockdown on your USB-C or USB ports that are on the laptops. And so the software version allows you to get around that and still connect into the room without having to plug anything into the device. So in both cases, we really allow for that lowest bar for entry and making sure that it's as minimal of steps as possible to get you connected to the space.
That really goes hand in hand with how DALY approaches these things, because we always try to explain to our customers and prospective customers we're here to provide solutions. We're not here just to provide products. And a lot of times, like, you were talking about all of that interconnectivity with all of the, whether it's Zoom, whether it's Teams, here at Daily, we use Ring Central, and you always do, you get that problem where you have to, you're set up for one particular platform and then the rest of them don't work. So you're overcoming that hurdle. And then, you talk about, again, the people who aren't even set up, because I can't tell you how many times we've had people come into our workspace at the Daily headquarters, and for some reason, one or the other, they're not able to get on the right Wi-Fi. They're trying to project to something, and we're running cables across the room because they can't do it wirelessly because there's something on their machine that is preventing them from connecting to an external display. So having that ease of use and being able to overcome these hurdles and overcome these barriers so that you can collaborate even more, to me, again, just is so valuable in this age, because everybody has something that they're going to specialize in. You have somebody who's on Excel because they're doing the spreadsheet thing. You have somebody who's in a Word document. You have somebody who's in a PowerPoint. You have somebody who's on, an external platform. And they're not all able to talk to each other, but yet you can bring them into a room and have them connect, and everybody's able to share everything, where, again, in just the normal Teams or Zoom space, oh, I'm not a presenter, you have to make me a presenter, or I'm you hear it all the time.
To give credit, though, to the UCC platforms, they are working pretty hard to try and solve for some of the challenges. They look at them differently than we do from a BYOD standpoint in a lot of cases, which is why kind of the blend of both worlds is where I think that we're going to get to, which is to say, I love having the manageability, the monitoring capabilities of having this UCC platform that can connect to all these devices and give me real-time analysis on the back end and things. I really do like having that. And at the same time, I need that room to still flex to whatever's thrown at it in the moment, because I can't predict anymore what team is going to be on floor 3, meeting room B, or whatever you've named that meeting room on any given day. And I don't know what tools will need to be used in that space as well as I did prior to COVID. And so because there's more software being used, there's more smaller tools that are only onboarded for specific teams, you need to have that flexibility that says, hey, we only use this for this one little thing, but it's super important. And we don't have the mind share of a Microsoft or a Zoom to get this plugin or get this integration done so that we can use it in our meeting spaces. How are we going to get this work done? Okay, well, we've got a flexible solution. No matter what, they can still get that up into the call, out to the team, so that you can continue to move forward. And I think that's where you're going to find kind of a commonality between us and the UCC platforms, understanding that each of us have unique strengths that organizations like to lean on and need, and help them do their work in a way that is more productive and more flexible. And we are a yin and yang, and we kind of need both to bring together that full picture in the meeting room so that it is able to be leveraged and used as quickly as possible.
Right. And it's not necessarily the platforms, because, certainly don't ever mean to disparage Zoom or Microsoft, but it's even organizational policies, because, again, we've seen that as well, where somebody comes in and in order to present, you have to download a plugin, but you're not able to do that because you're not an admin on your machine. And nor should people be admins on their machines unless they really need to be, because we have seen all kinds of bad things happen with that over the years. And, particularly when it comes to security issues. So, because, again, you're giving someone the opportunity to be able to share, to be able to collaborate, to be able to connect. And you're not talking about downloading anything. You're not talking about granting any permissions to anything. So, the data security on this, to me, at least from what I'm hearing, seems to be, right on par with what organizations need these days, because all too many times we're installing things or trying to install things or granting permissions without really knowing what we're doing and how we're affecting our device. And
Yep.
then when that device then connects to the network, what's the ripple effect?
We could do a whole symposium just on that topic alone right now,
Right.
especially in the context of AI. I've actually been working on a presentation this morning for some events later this fall around how important it is right now to be clear and transparent in your communication to your employees about how you are handling new technology that you're trying to onboard, because there are major implications on some of these tools that are not fully understood or recognized, and you don't necessarily know how a generative AI or how AI learning model is going to move within your organization based off of what you feed into it. And so you need to be very careful and very well thought out in how you implement things so that you don't end up either alienating your customer base or your employee base, or worse, putting yourself in a situation where you've breached data privacy laws without realizing it. And now you've been in breach for a period of time without recognizing that breach. And that could really cause problems down the line. We could go on and on about this, but that's probably a conversation for another day.
Oh, definitely. And believe me, I am all for conversations for another day, because that means you make another appearance on the podcast. So let me
Absolutely.
ask this, because people are always going to ask this. So we're talking a lot about ease of use, efficiency, connectivity. We're giving them everything that they like to hear, but then all of a sudden the question comes in, but how difficult is it to bring this into our current ecosystem? Do we have to get all new equipment? Do we have to have Chip and Joanna come into the meeting space and tear it down to the bare studs and rebuild it? What is the buy-in and what's the implementation?
Firstly, if anyone is considering redoing their offices and they have the disposable income to hire Chip and Joanna Gaines, please call me, because I'd love to work with you on a million other projects. I would. I mean, don't get me wrong. Your office will be amazing, absolutely stunning. But that is a commitment there. I would
Exactly.
say, yeah. The way that I would look at that really is more around the way that we've formatted this into the market is we have a very broad alliance program. Our alliance program consists of both compatible and certified devices. At this point in time, we have about 475 compatible and certified devices with ClickShare in the market. And what that means is that we are very confident in saying that we are a plug and play device, and we have an entire web site area dedicated to our program where you can go through and actually search any device that you currently have in your portfolio and see if it is compatible or certified today with ClickShare. If it's not, and you're working with somebody from ClickShare, you can certainly request to see if we can either onboard them or if we've assessed them previously and there's a reason that they're not onboarded into the program. We've been doing this now for close to 7 years. So the likelihood that the gear you have in these rooms, whether or not we'd be compatible, more than likely, overwhelmingly, more than likely, we will be able to plug and play with those devices for you. And what that means is whether it's out of the Poly product portfolio, Logi, Jabra, Sennheiser, Shure, you think of the brand, it's probably represented, and we probably have already taken care of the testing and have a cadence with that brand to ensure that that ClickShare and those devices are tested on a regular cadence. It allows for us to say for certified devices that we guarantee that there will be plug and play compatibility with that device, both today and in the future, as long as the device is still being sold. And same thing with us, as long as CX is still being sold. And then, of course, after its end of life during our support period, we will completely continue this same practice. So it should give customers the understanding, hey, there's an easy way for me to double check that this all works with the gear that I have in my room, and that I'm going to be able to stand it up and get going with it very quickly. And that's a premise that ClickShare, it can't just be easy to use for the user. It needs to be able to be easy to be adopted from an organizational standpoint. And that means it needs to be dropped into rooms that you've already provisioned a budget into and put some gear in, but maybe you're still struggling with some of that flexibility that we talked about earlier, or potentially you went with a wired solution or something else in there and have just determined that running a 20-foot cable across a room and regularly moving it around leads to somebody stepping on it much quicker than you would have anticipated. And so wireless just ends up being a really good solution there. So we will continue to double down on this in our future solutions. And we also work not just with AV peripherals, we also are partnering with the UCC platforms with productivity and control solutions. So whether you're working with somebody like a Utology from a device management perspective, we completely work with all of those tools and have an API available so that you can get your connectivity within your management portal. And we are working very closely with Microsoft on the reporting side. And we actually are participating in shared spaces within Microsoft Teams, which means that if you have Microsoft Teams rooms deployed and you also have ClickShare, we are able to enable so that we report into the Microsoft Teams Pro portal as a meeting space, and you are able to then apply a shared device license to that space for monitoring and ongoing management of the devices.
No, and all of that is fantastic. And particularly, again, like we said, we try to make things as easy as possible. So having someone, from state and local government, or having someone from education, or, having someone from the enterprise space getting in touch with DALY, and then we can help you make that determination. We can help walk you through that. We can pull in you and your colleagues at Barco as resources so that we can have all of those conversations even before there's bringing anything out. And then, being able to bring things out and show you again the value of how these solutions are going to work. I think that's very important.
I'll actually do you one better. We also have out there through our resellers and yourselves in the market a try and buy program, so that if somebody is interested in getting a hold of a device, we will absolutely send a device out for you to review and test on your on site with the devices that you have in your office space. Or if you're looking at new AV equipment, between DALY and ourselves, our try and buy programs have multiple different solutions that you can pick from our partner program to be able to try in conjunction with the ClickShare device. Or if you'd like to try a ClickShare bar all-in-one solution, we also have those available for you as well. And then, of course, we are at all of the major events within the space over the course of the year. So you will certainly see us out and about. We will actually be doing a U.S. roadshow this fall that we're hosting ourselves across a whole bunch of cities. So all of DALY's employees, as well as any customers that happen to be out there, are certainly invited to come and see us. We will be there with displaying office workspaces integrated into a furniture setting.
We're really looking forward to having you at our technology showcase events in October. Again, great opportunity for folks to come by and see exactly what we're talking about, see just how easy it is, again, to get this going, get it up and running, and being able to implement that. Because, again, we really want to make sure that we're giving everyone that consistency. One of the things that I know you say and we say as well when we're talking about ClickShare, we want to make it easy and engaging. And so that ease of engagement is right here, and we have the ability to implement that. And again, anybody who's interested in the Barco technology, and you should be interested in it, the first steps, all you need to do, reach out to your DALY representative. We are going to get everything taken care of on our end, as far as, again, seeing about the compatibility, the try before you buy. We can certainly get that set up. We work very closely with Barco. They're a valued partner here at DALY. If you want to find out some more information, we do have a page that you can go to. It is daily.com/Barco. That's BARCO. And then if you're interested, fill out the form at the bottom of that page or contact your DALY rep, and we'll get everything taken care of. Dan, anything we might have forgotten?
No, I think this has been a great conversation, Rick. I'm glad that we got time to sit down and do it, and I hope that you'll have me back again soon. If you have any other questions or are interested in anything that we talked about today, please feel free to find me on LinkedIn, Daniel Root at ClickShare. I'm also on, X now? So I'm at Dan Root as well. And then feel free to drop me a line or connect with me if you've got any other questions or any suggestions on where we should be going with this experience, because it is one of those things where we're always trying to look for the latest ideas and new approaches to really how can we get out of your way and make your day better and more productive.
Fantastic. Dan, thanks so much for joining us. We really enjoyed it, and I will definitely have you back in the future. So we'll get that on our calendars. But again, thanks for joining us on the Technology Pulse.
And that wraps up another insightful episode of the Daily Technology Pulse podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Before we sign off, we want to take a moment to remind you of some important legal considerations. The views and opinions expressed by guests on the Daily Technology Pulse podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Daily Computers or its partners. The content provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of Daily Computers, Inc. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can find us at www.daily.com. The Daily Technology Pulse podcast will be back with more exciting discussions on the latest in technology. Until next time, stay curious and stay connected.